A single millisecond. 1,000th of a single second. That is how long it took at the bottom of the North Atlantic for the Titan to go from a functioning submarine carrying 5 living people to nothing at all. You cannot perceive a millisecond, you cannot feel one, or think in one, or react in one. If you snap your fingers, that sound lasts hundreds of times longer than the entire end of the Titan. And in that impossibly small sliver of time, the ocean did something so violent, so complete, and so far beyond the scale of anything in ordinary human experience, that most people have never really been told what actually happened inside that vessel. We all heard the word implosion. It was on every news channel for weeks, but almost no one explained what an implosion at that depth truly is, what the ocean does to a sealed vessel, and to the air and the human beings inside it, in that fraction of a second. Not to be morbid, but because the truth, when you finally understand it, is the single most important fact of this entire tragedy. It changes how you grieve for those 5 people. It changes what you imagine their final moment was. And it is, in a strange and terrible way, the one piece of mercy in the whole story. So today, carefully and respectfully, I want to explain exactly what happened in that millisecond, what the pressure at that depth actually is, why the hull didn't just crack, but vanished, what happens to trapped air when the ocean drives in at 1,500 miles an hour, and the question every single person quietly wonders but is almost afraid to ask: did they feel it? Did they know? I'll give you the honest scientific answer to that, and I think it will bring you more peace than you expect. Before we go down there, one quick thing, and I mean it. This channel exists to tell the story of the OceanGate disaster and the great tragedies of the sea properly, with the real science and the real respect they deserve. If that's what you're here for, take 1 second right now and hit subscribe. It's free. It's the single biggest thing you can do to help this channel, and it means you'll be here for the rest of this story. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's understand what really happened. First, you have to understand the enemy, and the enemy here is pressure. At the surface, where you and I live, the air presses on us with a weight we call 1 atmosphere. We never feel it because we evolved inside it. But water is far heavier than air, and the deeper you go, the more of it is stacked above you, pressing down. For every 10 meters you descend, the pressure increases by roughly 1 more atmosphere. Go down 100 meters, and you already have around 10 atmospheres bearing down on you. Enough to make freediving deadly. Go down a few hundred meters, and no unprotected human could survive it. Now go all the way down to the Titanic. 12,500 feet, 3,800 meters. Down there, the pressure is not 10 atmospheres, or 50, or 100. It is around 400 atmospheres, nearly 6,000 pounds, pressing on every single square inch. Let me put that in something you can feel. Imagine the weight of a large car, and now imagine that entire weight balanced on an area no bigger than a postage stamp. Now imagine that same crushing force pressing in on every postage stamp-sized patch of the vessel, everywhere, all at once, from every direction, without a single moment's pause. That is the environment the Titan was sitting in. That is what its hull was holding back, every second of every dive. And a submarine, down there, is not really a vehicle. It is a bubble of ordinary surface air, and one fragile shell, standing against an ocean that wants nothing more than to equalize, to rush in and fill that pocket of low pressure, and make everything the same crushing density as everything around it. As long as the hull holds, the ocean is kept out. But the ocean is patient, and it is unimaginably strong, and it is pressing on every inch, always, waiting for the smallest failure. And on the Titan, on that final dive, the hull failed. Now, here is where you have to throw away the picture in your head. Because when most people hear that a submarine was crushed by the deep, they imagine something slow. A hull groaning, buckling, denting inward like a soda can squeezed in a fist. Water spraying in through cracks, a few seconds of chaos. That image is completely, totally wrong. And understanding why is the key to understanding everything. At 400 atmospheres, the failure of a hull is not a crushing. It is an implosion. And an implosion is one of the most violent high-speed events that can happen outside of an actual explosion. The moment the hull loses its integrity, the moment even a small part of it gives way, the entire structure fails essentially instantly, and the ocean rushes into that pocket of air with unimaginable speed and force. How fast? Engineers who have studied this estimate that the walls of the vessel collapsed inward at something like 1,500 miles an hour. Let me say that again. The sides of the Titan came together at around 1,500 miles an hour, faster than the speed of sound, faster than a rifle bullet. From the first instant of failure to complete collapse, the whole event took approximately 1 millisecond. 1,000th of 1 second. There is nothing in normal human life that is that fast. A blink of an eye takes around 300 milliseconds. That is, a single blink is roughly 300 times slower than the entire implosion of the Titan. In the time it takes you to begin to blink, the Titan would have already ended, and ended, and ended hundreds of times over. That is the scale we're talking about. Not seconds, not even a full blink. A single millisecond. And in that millisecond, two things happened at once. And both are almost impossible to imagine. If this is helping you finally understand what really happened, and if you'd want more of these stories told with the actual science, do me a favor and hit subscribe right now. It genuinely keeps this channel alive, and we're just getting to the heart of it. The first thing was the air. And this is the part almost no one talks about. Remember, the inside of the Titan was full of ordinary air at ordinary surface pressure. The same air you're breathing right now. When the hull failed and the ocean drove inward at 1,500 miles an hour, that pocket of air was compressed, squeezed from 400 times its volume down to almost nothing in that same single millisecond. And when you compress a gas that violently, that fast, something remarkable and terrible happens. It heats up enormously. It's the same basic principle that makes a diesel engine fire without a spark plug. Compress air hard enough and fast enough, and it becomes intensely, instantly hot. But a diesel engine is a gentle nudge compared to this. The near-instant compression of the air inside the Titan would have driven its temperature up to thousands of degrees for that fleeting instant. A flash of heat like the inside of an engine cylinder, or a bolt of something close to fire, blooming and vanishing in a fraction of a second. So the collapse was not just a crushing inrush of cold black water. It was, for that 1 millisecond, also a burst of ferocious heat and pressure at the very center of the vessel. Two of the most violent forces imaginable, arriving together and gone before any instrument could even record them. And the second thing that happened was to the vessel itself, and to everything it contained. At those forces and those speeds, the materials of the Titan did dent or fold. The carbon fiber hull was shattered, broken apart into fragments. The great titanium end caps, the strongest parts, were driven apart and hurled away. Everything that was inside, the equipment, the fittings, and yes, the 5 people, was subjected in that single millisecond to a change in pressure and force, so far beyond what any physical object can withstand that the human mind genuinely has no reference point for it. This is why, when the wreckage was found, it was a scattered debris field, not a damaged submarine. There was nothing left to be damaged in the ordinary sense. The vessel and everything in it had been, in an instant, utterly overwhelmed. I'm being careful here, deliberately, out of respect for 5 real people, and the families who loved them. I am not going to describe the human details, because those families deserve better than that, and because you don't need me to. You understand the forces now. You understand what 400 atmospheres arriving at 1,500 miles an hour means. You can hold the truth of it without me making it grotesque. And that brings us to the question. The one everybody asks quietly and is almost afraid to say out loud. Did they suffer? Did they feel it? Did they know in that final moment what was happening to them? And here, the science gives us an answer that is, against all odds, a merciful one. No, almost certainly not. And I want to explain exactly why. because this is the part that I think can actually bring some peace. It comes down to a simple, humbling comparison between two speeds, the speed of the implosion and the speed of the human nervous system. We think of ourselves as reacting instantly to things, but we don't. Feeling and knowing take time, real, measurable time. When something happens to your body, the nerve endings that detect it take a fraction of a millisecond to fire, but then that signal has to travel up through your nerves, into your spinal cord, up to your brain, and only then does your brain begin to assemble it into a sensation, an awareness, a feeling. Scientists who study this measure it carefully. The signal reaching your spinal cord alone takes somewhere in the range of 5 to 50 milliseconds. Your brain producing even a basic instinctive response takes around 25 milliseconds. And a conscious thinking reaction, actually realizing something and responding to it, takes at least 150 milliseconds, often more. Now hold those numbers against the implosion. The entire collapse of the Titan took about 1 millisecond. Do you see it? The event was over, completely over. Many times faster than a nerve signal could even reach the spinal cord, let alone the brain. Faster than the brain could begin to form the most primitive instinctive response. Far, far faster than any conscious thought could ever arise. The implosion outran the human nervous system entirely. It finished before the body could begin the physical process of noticing that anything was wrong at all. Which means the honest scientific truth is this: the 5 people inside the Titan did not experience their deaths. There was no pain, because pain requires a signal to reach the brain, and there was no time for the signal to travel. There was no fear in that final instant, because fear requires perception, and perception is far too slow, whatever they were doing in the last full second of their lives. Talking, watching the depth gauge, looking out that small window into the dark. That is where their experience simply, mercifully, ended. One moment they were alive and aware inside the vessel, and there was no next moment for them to endure. The end arrived and completed itself before their bodies could even register that it had begun. I find something strangely gentle in that. In a disaster with so little comfort anywhere in it, the physics itself provides the one kindness available. Of all the ways this could have ended, slowly running out of air over days, trapped and aware on the sea floor, which is the nightmare the whole world feared during that 4-day search. The reality was the exact opposite. It was the fastest ending physically possible. Instant, complete, before knowing. If you have ever lain awake, imagining those 5 people suffering down there in the dark, I hope this lets you set that image down. The science says they were spared the one thing we most feared for them. And once you understand all of this, you understand why so many engineers were so frightened of this vessel in the first place. Because this is what the deep ocean does. This is what 400 atmospheres means. It does not give second chances. It does not bend a hull slowly and let you notice and turn back. At that depth, a failure is not an accident you survive and learn from. It is total, and it is instant, and it is final. That is precisely why the proven vessels that safely carry people to the Titanic are built with such enormous, obsessive margins of strength. Because the engineers who build them understand, in their bones, exactly what we've just described. They know that down there, almost strong enough, and catastrophe are the same thing, separated by a single millisecond. And this is where the story reaches back, as it always does, to the ship the Titan died trying to visit. The Titanic, too, met the ocean's absolute indifference to human confidence. Her builders believed they had out-engineered the sea. They were wrong, and 1,500 people paid for it in the freezing water. 111 years later, a small submarine descended toward that very wreck, its builder equally certain he had beaten the ocean's rules. And the sea answered him in a single millisecond, with the same total finality it showed the Titanic on the same patch of the Atlantic. The deep does not care how clever we are. It never has. It simply waits at 400 atmospheres for the moment our confidence exceeds our engineering. And then it equalizes. That is what the implosion did. not a crushing, not a slow, terrifying end. A single millisecond, faster than thought, faster than pain, faster than fear, in which the ocean reclaimed a pocket of air it had been pressing against all along, and 5 people passed from life to the deep before their own bodies could tell them anything had changed. If understanding this brought you any peace or told you something you never knew, then please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell. It's the one thing that keeps this work going, and we're building the complete, honest record of the Titan and the great tragedies of the sea, one story at a time. I want you here for all of it, and I want your help deciding what we cover next. Every video from here, I'm choosing the topic from your comments, so tell me, what part of this story or which disaster of the sea do you want to understand next? Put it in the comments. I read every single one, and the most requested one becomes our next video. The sea keeps its secrets, but one by one, we're bringing them back up, and I'll see you in the deep.